Hello and welcome to GamesRadar's first look at Rock Band 4. I'm James Jarvis and today I am joined by OPM's Phil Ivanuik and another of GamesRadar Plus's staff, Ian Wilson.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
So yes, just yesterday guys, we went to see Rock Band 4. It was one of the first European unveilings of it.
I think it was the very first.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
Very first.
I'll have you know.
We got to go on stage and play the game. If you don't believe us, here is some footage of me and Ian in a very dark bar.
I don't think we knew what we were getting ourselves into, did we?
Yeah.
Having to perform it on stage in front of everyone else who was there, but it was good. Good fun.
It was a good experience, and there Ian also had to go on the drums.
It was very good.
Yeah. Now we should say at this point we didn't get to play with the new instruments. We were actually using Rock Band 3 instruments.
That's correct.
But we managed to speak to the guys afterwards and found out that actually, Ian, you can use any instrument you want with Rock Band 4.
Yeah, that's right. If you've got any previous Rock Band instruments or Guitar Hero instruments for your platform, then you can transfer them over to the new version. It's only wireless controllers that you can do that with.
Okay.
If you've got anything that's wired, that won't be compatible, but anything that's wireless, as I say, any of the Rock Band games equipment that came with it, any of the Guitar Hero games, you can transfer that over.
One thing to mention as well is they were trying for sort of PS3 to Xbox One and Xbox 360 to PS4 compatibility as well, weren't they? Which they haven't managed to get working. Which
no, I think
sounds like it's a higher up problem.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's probably more a Sony and Microsoft thing. They just won't allow it to work cross-platform.
But basically everything else is backwards compatible, which is great.
Right, and in terms of the gameplay that we actually got to play, we got to do quite a number of tracks. You see it here on the screen. Phil, do you think it's changed that much from, say, Rock Band 3 to Rock Band 4? Is there any new additions in there?
I mean, not really. It's a very, very familiar experience, and I think in some ways that's a strength. You know, working with tying in with the backwards compatibility as well. This is, I think, really aimed at people like Ian actually, who basically have never stopped playing Rock Band.
I've never stopped playing.
Still have the appetite for new material, and that's what's being offered here. Like there are new additions in terms of like the drum fills work differently. There's a bit more room for improvisation from the vocals and things like that. But the core experience is basically the same as it ever was. It's not necessarily a negative point, but I think it's.
No, exactly,
looking at the gameplay is pretty undeniable. Yeah,
it's the same basic interface that everyone's familiar with, so there's not anything new to learn there. They have said they want to make it a bit more expressive, what you touched on there. So like with the vocals, you don't necessarily have to hit that exact vocal line. Basically, as long as you're singing in key,
yeah, you still need
you've got room to improvise and you can sort of put more of yourself into the performance if you're a singer. With the drums, rather than just bashing out anything basically during the fill, as long as you hit the final note, there's going to drop in a kind of there's going to be a pool of drum fills that the game's going to pull from to fill in those drum fill bits. So it'll be more of a structured thing. I think there's still room around that for some improvisation, but there will be for people like me that don't really know what they do. We would just go blah, 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 during a drum fill. There is actually something to follow now as well, so it just kind of like keeps the band together a bit more.
And we get the inevitable wave of new tracks that come with any new edition of Rock Band 4, but you can also use all of the old DLC as well, right?
Yeah, they're really positioning themselves as the good guys of the beat matching genre here. So in addition to all the backwards compatibility, the whole however many tens of thousands of songs were made available as DLC for all the previous games. You can carry those over if you've already purchased them. So
any DLC that you've purchased. Also the export packs for the previous Rock Band games. Apart from Rock Band Beatles, I don't think you were ever able to export to the other games anyway. But all the other stuff, any DLC tracks you've bought, any stuff you've exported in the past, that will all come over to the new version. So if like me, you've been spending the last however many years hoarding this massive digital library of tracks for Rock Band, you'll have all that available to you from the start.
Okay. Now we can't talk about Guitar Hero without mentioning Rock Band, or the other way around. Now we can't talk about Rock Band without mentioning Guitar Hero. Yeah. So where do you think this sits in line with the way that Guitar Hero has gone?
I think they've gone in really different directions, haven't they? And I think that's good for both of them. So there is a new engine at work here. providing the sort of on-stage antics. But I'd say Guitar Hero Live looks like it's made the bigger step further in terms of current gen presentation, so it's live action, GoPro style footage. And I think in general, like, Guitar Hero Live is going to appeal to perhaps the new generation of gamers who weren't part of this like phenomenon the first time round, and like the track lists sort of reflects that. There's a Skrillex song in Guitar Hero Live's track list, and you know, there's folk, and the genres are being a bit broader. From what we've seen so far, the track list in Rock Band, the new tracks are as you'd expect. You know, it's rock. It's a Rock Band game, right? So yeah, they've gone in really different directions. Guitar Hero is really keen to innovate and to change up the challenge and redesign its peripherals. Rock Band is resolutely staying put, really making minor incremental improvements to the formula that it's had in place for a few years now.
Now, they did say when we were there that they wanted this to be the Rock Band of this console's generation, so there wasn't, on their mind, going to be a Rock Band 5 and 6 and 7. Like, they wanted it to just be, this is the platform, now you buy your DLC.
Yeah, I think they've been very clear on that from the start, that this is going to be the Rock Band 4 is going to come out, and that's going to be it for this generation. And as you say, it's going to be more of a game platform that then they can sort of patch new. They've said they're potentially going to be patching new features in, as well as obviously rolling out the DLC as they did with the previous games. So it's something they're looking at supporting for a number of years to come, rather than going to the usual sort of yearly sort of cycle of releasing games that can obviously leave people a bit sort of cold to the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what killed the genre in the first place. Like 2010 sort of era, there were new games and spin-offs and add-on packs coming out like every month, and I think that's why we all grew bored of it in the first place.
Okay, well, while we were there, we got a chance to go and sit down with Dan Sussman, who is the founder of Guitar Hero. He made Guitar Hero the game that it was, and then went on to do Rock Band. And you guys managed to sit down and have a quick chat with him, so let's take a look at that.
Career mode sounds really interesting. Some of the progression options around there, like whether you kind of sell out early on or whether you stick with the small shows. Are you able to elaborate on how that works? Because I mean, there's also the kind of voting system for the next song, right? Is that also taken into account with the bigger decisions through the career mode, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, they're recasting kind of your performance as a show instead of a song. I think is sort of a big change that allows us to do a lot of very interesting things, both in the context of, you know, just a regular play session where there are these great dynamics, you know, that evolve between players arguing about what song they want to play next. They have 5 or 10 seconds to make that call, and then boom, they're in. But then narratively, you know, the idea that your choices are meaningful and there's a crowd that has character and that you can develop a relationship with, I think is actually really interesting. And so a lot of our sort of design goals are around giving you the sort of, you know, some weight to your decisions. And, you know, it's not just about, you know, being credible or selling out, but like, you know, we can have a lot of fun with, you know, our writing and just the decisions that any band will have to make as they sort of try to forge a career. And we have a bunch of different endings that are all pretty interesting, I think, you know. And you know, to the team's credit, we have a lot of stories of our own that need to be told. So there's some great stuff in there.
Awesome.
Obviously, with the career mode, the focus is on having a band and having everyone together, which obviously is great if you've got everyone around your house, say, playing the game. Can you also do that all online, cooperatively with a group that you sort of bring back and keep going as a band?
The idea of sort of asynchronous multiplayer gameplay is certainly an idea that we've put a lot of thought into, and I can neither confirm nor deny like where we're headed in that space, but it's certainly a very interesting space. You know, the one thing I will say is that, you know, while Rock Band is a very captivating multiplayer game with a band, the narrative piece of it and sort of the entire game is developed to be enjoyed as a single player as well. So if you want to kind of be the drummer and sort of go on tour by yourself, you can do that.
Okay, Phil, so Dan mentioned there about the single-player component to the game. It looks like it's going to have some kind of RPG element.
By the sounds of things, yeah, you're going to be able to make decisions that shape the direction that your band goes in. So if you want to be the kind of the underground band that never plays the big arena shows and, you know, stays true to their fans or whatever, you can take that path. If you want to become the biggest band in the world, there'll be a kind of series of decisions along the way to make. And what I was trying to get at was, I wonder whether that's a decision that you make purely when kind of playing through the career mode in solo, or whether if you try and play that the career in multiplayer as well, then you get to vote on these decisions as a real band would. But he's tight-lipped on that one at the moment. But it does sound really fun. Like it does play to that the core fantasy, as Harmonix would say. Yeah. It's not just about being like the musician on stage. It's about kind of living the life. So I find that quite exciting to hear about.
Yeah, there does seem to be a lot that they are holding back for E3.
Yeah.
It's only a couple of weeks away now. They're probably going to have quite a big presence there. Ian, we saw him respond to your question about, I think he called it asynchronous online.
Exactly, yeah.
So
yeah, I mean,
with your mates.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we touched on the kind of like when you've got a group of friends together and you're all playing as a band, you get like this voting screen and you can decide which song you want to play next, and apparently you get some crowd feedback as well, so you might have people like chanting for a particular song, and you can decide whether you want to please the fans and play that song or do something else that you want to do. But yeah, in terms of the career progression as a band, yeah, he was fairly, to say, tight-lipped on that. But yeah, the mention of potentially asynchronous multiplayer, and that you could perhaps form a band with all your friends, but then also play sort of with that band solo, but then the stuff that you do feeds into that wider band thing that everyone benefits from. It'd be quite interesting to see what they do with that.
It would make sense to have an online component where you hook up with 3 of your mates, and you all have different instruments maybe, and you play a different thing, because obviously having rock band parties and things are great, but they don't happen very often.
No.
There's just times when you can go online and go, oh, do you want to come and play 3 tracks on your drum kit? I'll get them on the guitar. We'll take the band to the next level. It makes sense.
It sounds like such a headache, doesn't it, to orchestrate all the backwards compatibility and import all the previous songs, make sure that it all works within this platform, and get the asynchronous stuff up and running. I guess that's why the core experience is so, like, at this stage it looks quite untouched. Like they've obviously been focusing so much on getting all this other stuff to work. It must be such a headache for them.
All right, well, as we said, lots more to come from E3, and we'll be there bringing you all the coverage direct from all the shows, so stay tuned to GamesRadar.
That was a pretty sweet video, right? If you want to see more, go to GamesRadar's YouTube page over here, or if you want to read, maybe up your game a little bit, go to GamesRadar.com.